Today's video is talking about why children find it confusing when it comes to learning the letters B and D. When they read, they might read a B as a D, and when they write, they might write a D as a B, and vice versa. So today's video is telling you about why this happens and also what we can do about it. When a child is learning to label objects that they see, when they're young, the orientation, the position of that object has no impact on what that thing is or what that thing means. So here I've got a pair of scissors, and if they're orientated this way, they are scissors. If they're that way, they're still scissors. And if I flip it, scissors and scissors. So until we introduce these things that we call letters, that are symbols which represent the sounds of our language, the orientation, the position of an object has absolutely nothing to do with what it actually is or what it represents. But then when we start looking at these symbols, so here when we see a letter orientated this way, where we've got a stick and a circle, this is how we write the sound B. But all of a sudden we orientate it a different way, where the stick's on this side and the circle's here, and we now have a symbol that represents the sound D, which are two sounds made in very different ways, D with the tongue and B with the lips. And then if I flip it, now I'm seeing the letter, well, it usually has a little flick at the bottom, but that's the way we write, one of the ways we write the K sound, when it's the QU as the Q. If I flip it this way, now all of a sudden it is P. So when we introduce letters, the orientation of them all of a sudden has a really big impact. So that's why it happens. It is fairly normal in the first 6 to 12 months even for a child learning to read and spell. If it's an error that confusion persists past, and ideally that 6 to 12 month mark, if it's something that continues to be difficult for your child, then that's something that you might need to seek some additional support to kind of iron out. But generally it's something that isn't too much of a concern when it happens in the early stages of a child learning how to read and write. I'm going to tell you two things that can really help a child to either not become confused with this in the first place, or if it is something that is a persisting kind of confusion for them, what you can do to help iron that error out. So the first thing and the most important thing that we can do is have a really clear plan of the order that we teach the sounds and the spellings. So early on, if we teach a child the first 5 letters of the alphabet, we get A, B, K, D, and E. And you see the B and the D all of a sudden is taught very close together. So it's going to be not surprising if a child confuses them. What you'll see in a lot of phonics programs that have a really clear structure and sequence to the sounds chosen is the first set of sounds often contain things like this, the S, the T, the A. We often get a P in there, sometimes an I, and you'll sometimes see a N, and that's where the idea of sat pin comes from, sat pin, if you've heard that term. So what we see here is a set of 6 letters or 6 sounds that we can combine in lots of different ways, and they all look different. So they sound different, they look different, they're formed in different ways, so they're going to be less confusing for a child. So in the Sounds Right program, let me just move those out, we get this, the T, the A, the and the I as the first set of 5 sounds that we teach the spellings for. The next set is the N, the O, and the P. So we start building on it, and it's not till later down the track that we see the B, and then 2, 3, 4 weeks later, we would introduce our D sound as well to contrast it. So how we introduce them and in what order can really help a child to first cement this as the spelling of B, making sure we start with a stick up and over to make the B spelling, the B letter, and then later introduce the D sound. It's really important that when a child writes a letter, they say the sound. That is a key factor in making sure this sticks. So every time they write the sound B, we start with the stick, down, up and over, B, and say the sound as we do. So they're mapping, it's called orthographic mapping or orthographic processing, where they're mapping the sound they say with the symbol or the letter that they see on the page or the letter that they're forming. So every time we say the sound, as we write it, b, and likewise for d and d. Now, if you have a child who goes to write the sound b or write the sound d, and for both of those letters they start with a stick, what we commonly see as the error is that they do the stick and then they're not sure whether they go that way or whether they go that way. So if you watch a child writing out words that have a b or a d, this is usually the letter formation is contributing to that confusion. So what can we do? I'm going to show you a little trick to help iron this out for those students who maybe are a little bit older and continuing to have that difficulty writing the b or the d correctly. I have to give acknowledgement to Lauren Reinhardt of North Shore Speech Therapy. So she taught me this trick over 10 years ago, and it's one that I still use today. I haven't found a strategy that works better than this. So we want to link the way the letter is formed with the way we say it. When we see this letter and when we see this letter, we form both of them with a stick part and a circle part. So with the sound b, the first part we write is this stick. And if we think about how we make this sound with our mouth, our lips come together, b, and then they burst open. So I ask the student, does it look like my mouth is making a stick shape or a circle shape? Get your lips ready, b. And they will always tell you, it with a bit of gesturing here as well, that we start with the stick. So every time we need to write the sound for, write the letter for the sound b, we think about getting our lips ready, make a stick, start with a stick, b, and burst that sound open. And we always, when we write, move from a left to right fashion. So we can't start with a stick and go backwards. It's not something we're allowed to do in our letter formation. So let's see how it works for this sound. So when we make the sound d, you can see where I'm going here, is my mouth making a shape more like a stick or more like a circle. And we can exaggerate it a little bit. Normally d doesn't have much movement of the lips, but we can exaggerate it a bit to help this strategy. D, and you can see our mouth makes more of a circle, so we start with a circle, and it's that letter formation that is absolutely crucial here. Start with a circle, up, down, saying a sound as we finish, d, and moving from that left to right fashion. So this requires quite a bit of drill practice, saying the sound every time they write those letters, just in isolation, and then we can start to alternate them. So we tell the child, okay, I want you to write the sound d. What do we need to do? And using a mirror to help, gives that extra feedback, makes that activity slightly more multi-sensory. So we might start off with a d, and you can model this d. Okay, my mouth is a circle, d, good. Okay, now write a b. Okay, lips together, start with your lips, b, beautiful. Let's do another b, lips together, b, and a d, and so on. And then go back and get them to read it. You can get them to time it and really see if you can build that automaticity. So d, b, b, d, and you might have a big long string, and then you build it up into words that have a b and words that have a d, and then words like bad and bed that have both the b and the d in them as well. It's not a trick that happens, that creates magic overnight. It is something that you'd need quite a bit of consistent practice for. But the students I work with almost always say, I wish I knew this. It ends up giving them a strategy that they can use. And it doesn't detract them from the word they're trying to write or the sound they're trying to write. There are some strategies out there where a student has to put down their pen to work out, oh, is it a bat and a ball or a drum, or using the word bed. So if you put your hands up, this is a bit of a b, e, and d. But what that does is takes the child away from the word they're trying to write. So if they're trying to write the word bin and they're thinking b, okay, I've got my strategy for b, I put my pen down, work out, here's my bed. It's taking them away from that automaticity of just going b, okay, my lip makes a stick, b, start with a stick, up and over for the b. So I hope that gives you some information about why this happens, why it can be tricky for some children, and if it is something that you have a child or a student finding particularly difficult, so you've got some little strategies there to help them iron out that confusion. Okay, thanks for watching.